All right, everybody. Aloha Friday. It is so nice to be with you all. Jasmine, she's in the studio. We're getting hot right off the bat, but we're delighted for all of you to join us today as we discover this thing called reinvention. And I'm so eager to get into it with Jasmine. But before we get into all of that great conversation, I'm sure you're going to wow us with some of the stuff that you've experienced yourself, Jasmine. And welcome to the show. Welcome to Aloha Friday Live.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. And I'm just digging like your whole background, the whole vibe. It looks amazing.
Well, very tropical. For two Hispanics, she is from Brooklyn. I'm from the Bronx. She probably didn't know that prior to today, but we're excited to get into this conversation about reinvention. I know there's so many people that are struggling with what that even looks like. Matter of fact, they're
Right.
struggling what they look like, right? In terms of who am I? What am I doing here? And all those who and why questions that we constantly have. I love something that you said around the cat lives and how many times you had to be reinvented. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that amazing introduction. So my name is Jasmine Escalera. As you mentioned, I am born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I now live in South Beach. So I love this aloha vibe because this is all about what I am right now: is beach vibes, chill vibes, living the good life. So I actually have my PhD in neuropharmacology. And being a Latina in STEM, that's really what brought about my sort of coming into my business, having a lot of challenges, really being a Latina in STEM, being only in the room, feeling as though I was constantly just sort of belittled, my voice wasn't being used, and always struggling and fighting for what I felt I already deserved and had worked my tush off for. So really going through that process of navigating toxic work environments, being in those kinds of spaces, broke me down, but also was the first reinvention that I went through. So the breakdown of my confidence and the increase of my self doubt led me to the realization that your environment and the space that you are in can impact the way you truly view and see yourself, and also your success and capabilities to thrive. And so what I do right now is one of the things that I love to talk so much about is how it's not just about thinking about your career path anymore. We really have to be thinking about how our career path and our journey needs to be supported by healthy, supportive work environments that truly allow us, especially as professionals of color, to come into the space and to be the most authentic and confident version of ourselves, and to get the things that we need to feel valued so that we can really think about not just where we are today, but where our career path is tracking to. But we also are able to get there, because when we're not in those environments, that self doubt, that imposter syndrome, that lack of confidence is just going to hold you still, and you're not going to progress to the level that you really would be capable of. So that's kind of my first reinvention, was really around my career and coming to this moment of, wow, like it's not just about how hard I work. It's also about where I am. And I have to really be conscientious of the environments I'm in to be able to get the success that I want.
I love that. As a Latino, early on in my military career, I've shared this plenty of times. I'll share it again because it's appropriate. There were times where that piece of me, that part of my life, was not appreciated in my circles.
Right.
And you talk about STEM. I'm a meteorologist and oceanographer.
I
So
love
you know,
that.
so when I was in those circles, just to be blunt, it was a lot of white. That's just the way it was, right? Because you were either white or you was Asian. There were no Southeast Asia folks in the schools that I went at the time, but there was an element, there was a type, and I just didn't fit that, right? And to be
Yeah.
honest with you, how I landed in there was just astronomical in nature. It really started with what you want to do. And I was like, I want to be in an office that's got air conditioner coming from Puerto Rico. And they, uh,
I love that. You started with AC.
let's get the real important things down, right?
Yeah, but I think that that's, I think you're hitting something really so interesting, which is, coming from certain environments. So I grew up in the projects of Brooklyn, New York, right? So when I was thinking about what do I want for my career, what I wanted from my career was I wanted to make 100K, right? Because to my parents, if you made 100K, like you were living the life. And so, it's interesting because where you come from dictates your ceiling and how much you believe you are capable of getting, right? And sometimes because of where we come from, our background, our brain has to be broken to even think that there is more than the 100K, the 40, the 401K, the health insurance. My parents gave me this amazing blueprint of what success was, but yet they had never achieved, from various reasons, any of those things on that list. So their idea of success was their version of what they hadn't achieved, but what they wanted me to achieve. And I had to really look at that later in life and ask myself, okay, I've achieved all these things, but like, am I really happy? Is this really what I want? And is there more? Like, how do I break my brain open to really think beyond where I came from?
That's beautiful. Now I tell you that you just bring up something I was thinking out over here, environment. And so as we're talking reinvention, it's interesting. I grew up in the Bronx. I was going to Clinton High School at the time, and I was in line to go to Cornell, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Air Force scholarship for ROTC. So compared to what I just mentioned about the AC, that ceiling is up here, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
a simple move from the Bronx to Puerto Rico turned my Cornell Air Force officer into give me some AC. So what a drastic setback based
Hmm.
on environment because
Yeah.
I was just like, hey, get me off the island. I love the island. I love being Puerto Rican and born there. But man, I wanted off because I had just come from the Bronx with all these aspirations of grandeur and excelling, beating the status quo of my generation, of my family capabilities, of all of that. And it drastically went down to an AC requirement. So, environment is almost as important as your dream because
Yeah.
you can dream whatever you want. But if you're not in an environment that will cultivate that and bring that to at least one step closer, then you're shooting yourself in the foot, as we often say. Now, Jasmine, uh, you you have this background in STEM, un I would say unorthodox for a Hispanic in New York City to head that way. So, what got you, first of all, heading that way
Hmm.
outside of maybe getting exposed to STEM in school?
Yeah. So I think, it's kind of interesting. And, I have no regrets in my life, but if I could go back in my life, the biggest piece of advice I would give myself is to listen to myself. Because when we think about our careers and when we think about our lives, there are the things that we are good at and really love doing versus the things that we are good at and would never actually want to do. So, because I didn't really give myself the capability to explore, I was interested in science and I was really, really good at it. And because I was really, really good at it, allowed a lot of the external sort of pressures or the external voices to sort of drive me in a direction that hindsight, I probably shouldn't have taken because although I was good at it and I did enjoy it, it wasn't my passion and it wasn't what I loved to do. And so, that's a tough question to answer because it's, I followed a course of action without really tapping into myself and asking myself, is this really truly what Jasmine wants? And when I grew up, we grew up pretty poor. We grew up in the projects. Things were really challenging. And there was so much of that external pressure that my parents were feeling that just ultimately just kind of got pushed onto me, unbeknownst to them, of course. And a lot of the narratives in my mind were like stability, right? Stability, financial stability, get out of the projects, get a good job. And so I really allowed that narrative to play out in my mind and select the opportunities and things for me instead of really allowing myself to explore. So I love science. I love my background. What really got me into it was just that enjoyment of like solving problems, right? I love solving problems. And that's really what I do with my coaching is I solve mindset problems. I solve strategic problems with my clients. But I probably could have asked myself, well, what are the other ways that you can solve problems that would be more sort of in tune with your own internal mission? And so that's something that I like to play with my clients as well. So if I have someone who comes to me and says, I'm not in the right career, I really want to reinvent my career, I want to do something that's more passion filled and more purposeful, it's about aligning the strengths, meaning the strengths that you have that you continue to want to use with that internal driver and that internal mission, and really tapping into you, right? Listening to you. Because we do very often go through life without listening to that internal voice. It comes up, like we hear it, right? There are those moments where we'll say to ourselves, is this it? Is this really what I want to do? I'm not really enjoying this. But then our brain just kind of stops from there, because then the questions become, well, what would we want to do? How would we do that? When would we get that done? What kind of resources do we need? And that's just too overwhelming, right? That we don't enjoy change, so we shut ourselves down. So, long-winded way to say, what really brought me into science was I did enjoy it, but inevitably, the most important thing here is not just finding what you enjoy, but finding something that really connects to who you are.
Yeah, I love that because you know, by my own accounts, hey, give me an AC, and they say, hey, we got this. I was like, does it have AC? I didn't even ask what the specifics of the job was. But obviously, I was science and math inclined. It came
Mhm.
out on my ASVAB, the aptitude test that they give to the military. And I just fell into it because I had a capability already displayed in my test scores. So it was obviously naturally easy for me to get into this field. But I made it a thing, and I did endure the whole 26 years as a meteorologist and oceanographer. But did I do it after I retired? No. Matter of
Mhm.
fact, I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to see that no more. Yeah. Just to your point, sometimes we get into things that we are naturally inclined to be able to do, but bring no joy at the end of the day. And so, uh,
Mhm.
I love that we can do that as humans, but personally, it almost becomes a sell for us because we can't really, and then we see what we really want, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, I wish I had that. And so you end up living a life of expectations of others. You kind of mentioned that a little. I fell into the same thing, being a poor Bronx, project type of person in the neighborhoods, and
Yeah.
I really ended up I was the eldest, right? So I am the
Mhm.
eldest. And so that was another added pressure,
Sure.
especially single parent home. I mean, there were so
Mhm.
many things that I
There
was
were so
trying
many,
to
yeah.
address. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying
Yeah.
to address this, that I never ever thought of, like you mentioned, hey, what would Enrique like to do? And so
Yeah.
my entire I would say my entire journey in the military and professionally in that aspect was answering someone else's call, someone else's desire.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that we have to give ourselves a lot of grace and compassion. And this is something that I tell my clients all the time is like grace and compassion to self is always number one, right? So, my parents didn't have the capacity to dream. they had to pay bills, right? And my dad didn't graduate high school. My mom was the sole breadwinner in the family. My dad had a traumatic brain injury when I was very young. So my mom was a school teacher, basically trying to take care of a 4-person household. So the capacity for some people to dream, right, just isn't present just because of the external circumstances and situation that you're in. Now, does that mean that you should not allow yourself the moments to dream or the moments to take a step back and reflect and ask yourself those deep questions? No, but we also need to go back to that grace and compassion of knowledge of what situation are we in and how can I fit these things in, even just knowing my situation, because they can help to change my situation. So, for me, was it easier for me to have the capacity to dream? Somewhat, but going back to environmental factors, when you are living with parents and they are struggling and you are seeing and sensing though that struggle through them, you just sort of take that energy on. And so it becomes that your mindset is the mindset of struggle and the mindset of scarcity, even if you're going through your life and you are claiming those moments of abundance. So I was making very good money in my career at one point. Like it was great. And I still was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if this is not, I still had all of these existential questions. And it took a lot for me to take a step back and say, like, okay, this is a mindset issue. This is something that I'm taking on from my parents. Maybe even they took on from their parents. And we have to really give ourselves that grace and compassion of knowledge of how we grew up, what environment we're in, and all of the other factors that are sort of holding us back from having this capacity to dream or having this capacity to reflect on those very important questions that could be the life-changing questions for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And folks listening, I see a lot of folks that are joining in. Thank you for doing that with us today. And I hope this conversation is beneficial to you. Jasmine, you mentioned, you know, we don't govern who we're born to. Right? That's not a choice
No.
we have. Yeah, we're not. It's just that. So, but
No.
we get in here, we get in this life, and then we don't really govern the circumstances or environment that we're in. There are some people, as poor as we may have been, there's some people that are way poorer,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I saw some of those elements going back to Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, that's why I wanted to leave, right? Because I came, hey,
Yeah.
I was in the Bronx, and yeah, I thought it was kind of rough, but shoot, compared to
Yeah.
this, I want to go back. And so,
Yeah.
those are two factors that we don't really govern. But you mentioned something that's so powerful: giving yourself the grace to dream, even if
Hmm.
you're in circumstances that don't allow it. Let's say you have to get in this grind right now, and because that's what's needed. And you also mentioned the environment, opportunity for someone in another generation to be able to be closer to moving forward towards a dreamer kind of life. And for those listening, I don't know if you find yourself in any one of those scenarios where you want to dream, but you're in a situation you just can't really spend too much time in it, or you're in a situation where the environment is just not conducive for you to go and dream farther than what you can. And even at the point where, let's say, you're in a certain situation where you are living out a portion of that dream, but it's kind of like mundane, and you're
Hmm.
not really feeling the love and joy that really comes from doing what you want. So to those people in those categories, you mentioned mindset. I want you to just talk a little bit about mindset, because even in those scenarios and those three kind of buckets, mindset can get you a little closer than you realize.
Yeah. So this is the thing, right? So one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn is that I always have a choice. Now, do I always have a choice over my external circumstances and situations that I'm in this moment. No, right? Like sometimes you just are in certain situations, certain circumstances. But what you always have the choice of is your mind. You always have the choice of perception. You always have the choice of how you see the situation. You always have the choice of how you can change your mindset. And changing your mindset may be really challenging depending on where you are and the situations and circumstances around you. But when those situations and circumstances feel as though they can't change, knowing that you can change the way you perceive them, see them, and think about them can be really powerful. Because essentially, what that does is if you perceive, think, or feel differently about your particular situation, then you will start to act differently. And the acting differently coming from the different perception, so a more positive perception, a more empowered perception, a more confident perception. So those actions, those behaviors, what you will change from that new mindset will start to create change in your external environment. And so that's the power of focusing on your mindset. We all may have, and some of us might be in really challenging situations in the past or in the present. But to change your perception and to change your mind and thoughts around it, that is what you always have control over. And the thing about changing your mindset, your perception, your thoughts, your feelings, it's a trickle effect, right? It will take some time for the external environment to really be able to align with that new mindset or new perception. And so that's why we cave a lot, right? We cave because we don't hold that sort of faith or that hope or that mindset because we think that things need to change so rapidly, especially within this sort of age that we're in now where everything is just instant gratification. So the hardest part about mindset shifts is not to change your mindset, it's to hold the mindset. And it's almost to hold the unwavering faith that through this new change in perception and thought, I will then change my behaviors and actions, which eventually will change my circumstances and my situation. So that's the challenging part about mindset. And so you can't just focus on like, I'm going to think differently, I'm going to be more positive. I think the hardest thing is the patience.
And I love that. Patience truly is one of those things that allows you the grace and time for you to be able to work those things out. And I came across something yesterday. I would love to, I'm going to put it on, which kind of falls right in line. And this is a picture of the narrative lens. And
Mm-hmm.
if you notice, every picture has this mountain or horn in it, right? Sometimes we're in situations physically. We
That's
are.
huge.
And everything that we experience is put on that perspective, that narrative
Mm-hmm.
has that element in it. And so I saw that yesterday. I said, well, I'm going to have that, but let me put this down. And then we were talking about it. I wanted to throw it up because sometimes our circumstances, no matter, what environment we're in, if internally we are not ready for that move, we have to develop that within ourselves in order to get ready for
Absolutely.
those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that photo. That's really cute.
Yeah, I'll send it to you after the show. Now, so let's talk about reinvention because it really takes hard work. And earlier you mentioned this word strategy, which I love. I'm a strategician. I like putting strategy to almost everything I
Mm-hmm.
do because there are a lot of factors that come into play for every decision. It can't be just as easy as yes and no. Every
Yeah,
yes and no has external elements to it that is going to tie to something else. And I remember someone telling me, hey, Enrique, every time you say yes, because I love to, every time you say yes, you saying no to something else.
right.
And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Why you got to
Yeah.
throw that at me?
Why are you throwing truth at me?
I know. Come on. So,
Yeah, totally.
so things are tied. Things are tied.
Yeah.
But strategy, that word, and the execution of that word in our decision, especially during reinvention. Talk to us a little bit about how you use strategy, how you help others use strategy to get them to the next level that they need to be in.
Yeah, well, strategy for me is way far down the line. So the problem with reinvention or with this concept or idea of I want to change my life, I want to reinvent an aspect of my life, or I want to do something more along the lines of what's important and valuable to me, releasing external pressures and expectations. The problem is that we jump to the strategy too quickly, and that actually shuts our brain down. So the
Mm.
how, the when, the like steps, that should be actually later. And the reason why I say that is because you will come across the strategies, the steps, and the actions to take when you are so grounded in your why. Why is this so important for me to change? Benefit, what am I going to get out of it? And what are the people around me that I love going to get out of it when I go through this change? And also really focusing on the vision. What do I even just want for myself, right? So there are the first things that you need to do, which don't really have anything to do with steps or strategy. It really has to do with clarifying who you are, what you want, and really building a very powerful mindset around that. Or else, if you jump into the strategy, what's just going to happen is you're going to say, well, I don't freaking know how to make this happen, right? Because the vast majority of us don't know how to really be able to claim this life we want, right? So if you jump too quickly in the strategy, your mind is just going to shut down, and it's not going to go anywhere. But if you ground in your purpose, your passion, your why, if you ground in the new identity of the person you want to become and why that identity is so important and impactful to you, if you really ground yourself in the right mindset, and you start to flip your mindset, you start to release the doubt, you start to build the confidence, you start to tell yourself, like, wait a second, I feel so good, even just thinking about what's possible for me, then that's going to create the momentum that will then allow you to even start stepping out and doing things a little bit differently, which will in itself just start to open doors, right? If you do things the same way, you're going to get the same outcome. If you start to see things differently, see yourself differently, and you start to act differently, you're going to start to get a different outcome. So just that is really powerful, because essentially what it's showing you is, if I even just think that this is possible for myself, and I even just think that I can actually do this, then I'm going to do certain things differently and I'm going to get different outcomes. Now you've got evidence that this is possible for you. So at the ground level, you've got to start creating that new identity, that new mindset, that new thought process, tap into your why, and just start to act a little bit differently so the evidence is present that this is available to you. If the evidence is present that this is available to you, then you're going to start to be like, holy shit, this feels really good. And you're going to start to really think, what else can I do? And that's more so where the strategy will come into. You need that momentum. You need to get the ball rolling before you go into strategy. If you don't, then that you're just going to shut yourself down. It's really challenging to step directly into the strategy when you're trying to reinvent yourself. So there has to be that first level why, that first level buildup of self, maybe some initial habit forming. So some new habits that create some new actions, that create some new results, opening of some new opportunities and doors. And then you're just going to start to, like, the strategies are going to start to flow because you feel more like it's possible for you.
That's wonderful. Yeah, let's go to the ground level. I don't want to put nobody on the 10th floor. Never been on an elevator, but but I think yeah, ground level is where the necessity really
Mhm.
is imperative for you to do it. I love the ground level. I love foundational structure. I love making sure that when you put these layers on, you can hold,
Yeah.
as we say,
Yeah.
construction wise, you can hold the load because it will become one as you progress. So you get into this, identifying your why, you get into this um, uh, rethinking some habits and putting things into play. Those things are difficult as it is, right?
Yeah.
Habit forming, some we've been trained into, and some we've trained ourselves into. So for those habits that you've seen have been more challenging for your clients or for folks that you have helped, what have been the ones that have been glaring?
Yeah. So I want to put out there that staying on the hamster wheel is easy. No doubt about it. Like staying on the hamster wheel is super easy. It's a grind, but it's easy. It's comfortable. And you've proven to yourself that if you stay on the hamster wheel, you're going to stay alive. Somehow you're going to, even if you're struggling, somehow you're going to find money for rent. Somehow you're going to find money for food. Somehow you're going to make it work. And so your mind is never going to want you to get off the hamster wheel because you are alive. Going through a transformation, a reinvention, trying to do something different, that's challenging. And so I'm never, ever, ever going to say that going through a transformation, reinventing yourself, reinventing your career is easy. That's actually stepping outside of the comfort zone, which, as we know, is hard. Now, what going through a reinvention has taught me is that there is an immense level of healing that will have to incur, that you will have to go through to become the next version of yourself. You have to heal different mindsets. You have to heal different aspects of you. You have to release certain beliefs. You even potentially have to release certain people, certain concepts, certain ideas. With transformation, with reinvention, with up-leveling comes an immense level of change, but also an immense level of grief. This is not an easy process. And so when someone comes to me and says, I'm ready to do this, I know that they are going to go through the best journey of their lives, but also a challenging one too. So I just want to put that out there. Now, in terms of what some of my clients have really struggled with, it's usually around the way people will perceive them. So if I change, right, how is someone going to perceive me? If I start stepping out and I start trying to using my voice or start having more conversations, how are people going to perceive me? It's a challenge for me to put myself out there, right? So it's usually about really opening yourself up and this level of vulnerability that comes with that, and this perception of what other people are going to think about you if you start doing things differently, saying things differently, walking differently, having different habits, taking up the space that you deserve. What is everyone else going to think about me going through this process? And so sometimes the hardest thing to release is that sense of like, I don't care what anybody else is going to think of me, that this is really so important to me that I'm going to continue to move it forward and do it. And also that ability to be able to say, you know, if people don't like it, they leave, you know, they will release themselves from my space, but I'm still going to continue to go through this process. So I think the hardest thing that a lot of people really deal with is the perception that others are going to have about them when they start becoming the version of themselves that they want to become, and what that means in terms of the changes of relationships and bonds and connections and thoughts.
That is so powerful. I mean, you're talking and I'm over here like, holy moly. When you think about what we have built up until today, right? So the circle I have built up until today, if I make a change, let's say in the direction that I think I need to be going, it will immediately impact the circle that I have formed up to today. And so unless I'm willing to drop some people off at the bus stop
Yeah.
or say, hey, it's been great. I have loved every minute of the time we shared, but where I'm going, you can't go. Hey,
Right.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And bid them farewell and love them still. You know, hey, I'll send you a postcard when I get there, right? You know, and that's so powerful because in order to get, sometimes you got to let go, right? I mean, I got a cup of coffee right here.
Yeah.
If Jasmine want to give me a new job, I got to let go of this cup of coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been like you mentioned that the hamster wheel. But it's nice, you know. Está calentito, right? It's hot. I got
I know, I'm jealous. I actually would love a cup of coffee right now, but no, but I
Well,
think
no.
it's, I think that when we think about this change, and yes, certain people are going to inevitably leave your life, right? So it was funny that when I started to really change aspects of myself and become the version, or started to become the version of me that I felt more comfortable with, right? Because I was in a workplace where I felt like I was conforming, I didn't feel like myself. But when I started to become that person and started to reclaim Jasmine,
Hmm.
yes, certain people are going to just drop off. But that's because, in essence, you are triggering something within them that they're not comfortable with, right? So it's
Mm.
not a you problem; it's a
Mm.
them problem. Now,
Oh boy.
whether they are capable of flipping the lens and seeing that for themselves is on them. You are never, ever, 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 because of the law of free will, you are never in charge of anybody else flipping the lens and looking at themselves. Like, you have to let everybody just live the life that they need to live, and pray and hope and love, give them everything that they need to give, even if it's from a distance, to hope that they can step into the version of themselves that you see and that you would love for them to actualize. Now, there are some people that will dip away, but there's what I also realized, and what I also learned, is that there will be some people who I just have to create boundaries with, right? Like, I can't let you into, I love you, you're going to stay in my life, but I can't let you into my life in the same way that I let you in before, because I see you for who you are and the value and contribution you make to my life. But because I am different and because I need different things, our relationship just essentially has to change. So your relationships are just going to get different, right? Like, yes, some people you might have to leave them at the bus stop. Some people, you might just have to create more effective boundaries. And check this out, with some people, they're going to start seeing you change and up level day by day by day, 1% each day better. And they're going to start to be like, well, damn, I would love to do that for myself too. So with a certain group of people, you're going to inspire them to be
Mhm.
better and to want to do better. So the relationships are going to shift, they're going to change, they're going to move, but they're going to become much more deeper, richer, meaningful, either because you release what you shouldn't have, you set boundaries around what you should, or you start to inspire those who want to come on the journey with you.
Yeah, very powerful. And for those listening that you're thinking reinvention, you're thinking growth, you're thinking change, don't be afraid. What's going to
Yeah,
happen is going to happen regardless.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's not gonna change because you were worried more about it. What's going to happen is that you have to get comfortable with the opportunity of growth wherever that may be. You have to
yeah,
be comfortable with and assured that your growth will cause some actions in others, but it's not to your detriment.
right.
It's just they have to go through that. And I was
Yeah,
thinking about, when you talk about why and having the people in the right seat on the bus, right? We do that professionally, right? If someone in our team is not fit for that head driver seat, then you take that person and say, hey, you did a good job up until this point. I think that there is some other place that you would be suited better. And I'm going to go ahead and rearrange this seating chart and you're going to be sitting over here. Hey, there you go. All right. So it's similar to that. There's some
yeah,
people that have been in the driver's seat that will be best suited on another seat, and sometimes
yeah.
they're best suited off the bus.
Off
so,
the bus completely. Yeah, but
so
I love that analogy of, like, people just shift their space. And I really think that I'm going back to what you said, like, don't fear it. Like, what I really realized was, when I started to change myself, started to really think about what is it that Jasmine wants, the people who were released from my life were released from my life because they knew me as the version that they liked me for.
mm,
But that wasn't me, right?
right,
So
right.
I think that we have to acknowledge and recognize that some of our relationships that we are acting a part. And if we don't want to act that part, and we want to really be able to step more into our authentic self and who we want to be and become, then those people just naturally will be released. And I think that's a great thing because it's showing you that you are changing more into you, and those individuals wanted to be connected to the other version of you. And so I've seen this a lot even recently, like, even very recently, my most recent sort of reinvention of self was like, I'm going to get very into, taking care of my body, taking care of my health, taking care of my well-being. I had a really big health scare at the end of 2023, and I was like, I just cannot do this anymore. Like, I have to treat myself well. And so even just giving up drinking, and being like, I'm not going to socialize around alcohol, that even changed the people that, wanted to hang out with me, right? Or wanted to be around me, or that I wanted to be around. So even just the small habits and behaviors that you implement for the best version of you are going to change your relationships. They're going to change what you do. They're going to change what you're inspired to do. But these are the right decisions that you need to be making for yourself and for your well-being.
Yeah, and thank you for that. That's also a great example of you either want this or you don't. At the end of the day, every change that I've implemented, and believe me, there's been many that I've got on I got on the bike and I'm like, yeah, this is good. And then 2 weeks later, it's like, yeah, that's a nice bike. Oh, hey, 3 weeks later, oh, that bike's in the closet. Oh, yeah. so, so
Yeah.
there's some things that we kind of dib and dab in to see how we can better ourselves. But you mentioned the health scare. You mentioned choices, personal choices to become more healthy. I've seen your post on exercising and things like that. All great things to help us live better.
Right.
A lot of people don't subscribe to those things, right? So naturally, they won't be hanging out, spending more time with us. Right now, this person want to walk 5 miles. I can't even walk down the street. So it's one of those things that people will gravitate to and gravitate away from.
Yeah.
But you talk about uh, you mentioned something there that really struck me. A lot of the relationships and a lot of the habits and a lot of the things that we're connected to that we may be playing a role in, those people are comfortable with how you were at that point because it made them comfortable.
Yeah.
It made it easy for them.
Yeah.
Not that it was the best for you, because if I see Jasmine, let's see, we run across each other, and then I see you, boom, you're putting them down. I'm like, oh, Jasmine, hey, it's your choice. But man, the other
Mhm.
day you said that you was like, for your health, what happened? I mean, so it would be easier for me to say, hey, let's go. Woo! The
Yeah.
old Jasmine's back. The old oh, Jasmine's
Yeah.
back. Okay, it would be easy because then you let me be the old me, right? And so
Absolutely.
instead of saying, "Man, I loved how you was headed towards a great way. It was inspiring, and whether I like it or not, it was really clashing me to be better and to do better, and then encourage you to pursue that." Right? A lot of people won't. So be mindful, folks, that in your reinvention journey, you may get those that are happy to keep you where you were,
Yeah.
and you have to identify that. You have to see that. You said, I see you how you really are. You have to get to that point, not in a negative way. Obviously, we all have our things, right? So you can't be judgmental or critical, but at
Mhm.
least see it, because it may be a detriment to you if you don't,
Absolutely.
right? If you don't
Yeah.
see that horn sitting in the middle of your painting, then you're gonna find that every painting that you are, whatever circumstances you may find yourself, that horn's gonna pop up because you just didn't identify it. And so
Yeah.
great discourse there. So we get these ground floors going, strategies down the road, and it will play its role when it comes up. w- when you speak to folks and they're seeing the fruit of these little changes, right? Because I know it's encouraging when I started my 5 mile walks and I was like, oh, get on the weight. You're like, whoa, holy moly. it's it's working, right? So you get
Yeah.
this encouragement and then the plateau.
Yeah.
Ay, yay. The plateau is such a challenging mind gaming period in any change that you want to do. So get us off the plateau real quick.
Well, okay. So interestingly enough, right? I think that when you undergo a change and you plateau, that is experiencing the fruit of your labor, right? Like that is experiencing everything that you've gotten to get there. So I think that life is about flavors, right?
Mm,
So you kind of mentioned earlier, like, hey, I pulled out this exercise bike, I tried it a little bit, and I was like, this isn't for me, right? But you went for it and you tried it. You got the flavor of it, right? You gave yourself the experience. So I think life is about having experiences and then enjoying those experiences and the fruit of those experiences and continuing to listen to yourself, right? So some of the biggest questions that I ask myself is, am I enjoying this experience right now? And if so, why? And I also love asking myself, did I enjoy that experience that I just had, right? I also really like asking myself, like, how am I going to feel after this experience, right? Because that helps me
mm,
decide whether I want to have it or not. So I
very
think that
important.
we don't have to be in this ever changing space where we're always changing, changing, changing. I think it's a matter of like, what would you like right now? What would you like to do differently? If you could change an aspect of your life, what aspect of that life would you change? Because here's the thing, if you change yourself in one space, there's a trickle effect, a ripple effect. It will change you in other spaces. So you will just automatically start to see a different version of you across the board. You don't have to focus on every single aspect of life to create change. You can focus on one, realizing that you are reinventing your identity and sense of self, and that will just have a ripple effect in other areas. But then, like, enjoy yourself. And the goal is to, when you are in that stage of so-called plateau, is to just ask yourself, am I cool here, right? Like, am I happy here? Is this giving me what I was looking for? And if the answer is yes, enjoy yourself, continue to reflect, continue to tap in. And when you get to that moment where you feel like, okay, I need to have some different experiences now, that's where you get to say, all right, what are those experiences that I want to have? But the goal here is to have experiences, to enjoy those experiences, and then to chill in your life. I think that we always think that we have to be doing something. And my goal, honestly, is to get women to the place where they feel comfortable where they are.
That's beautiful. Now you remind me of, because I do enjoy plateaus. I brought it up because a lot of people feel,
Yeah.
oh, I'm plateaued. I'm not
Yeah.
gaining. Let me put this picture. Uh, on Oahu, in Hawaii, there's a mountain called Makapu'u Point. Right, Makapu'u Point it has basically a spiral around the mountain. You get to the top. There was a section there that's made intentional for those that are hiking up the trail to be able to sit and relax or whatever. So we're going up, and I want to get to the top, but this place afforded me an opportunity to decide, well, let's just chill here for a while. So I did.
Hmm.
At that moment, I'm looking out to the ocean in the Pacific, and a school of whales started shooting up.
Yeah.
If I had kept going,
Oh, yeah. You would have
I
missed
would have.
it.
I would have made it to the top, but I
Yeah.
would have missed that. And I
Yeah.
was like clicking. I was like, wow, I have a real power. I'm in there. I'm real close taking pictures. plateaus do not mean failure, and
Yeah,
plateaus often mean recoup, rest,
absolutely. Rest,
enjoy, right? And
chill.
so you know, chill. Yeah, you mentioned chill. Had I kept going for the sake of the goal, I would have missed out. You know, a hiker that goes up a mountain and doesn't take a time to sit, turn around, and look at the expanse in front of them has missed the point of
Miss the whole
hiking.
point of the whole
Right?
thing. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And look, like one of my biggest lessons was like that I was addicted to scarcity. I lived in scarcity. I was comfortable in scarcity. So I would blow up aspects of my life just to create chaos and scarcity. But I've released that, but I also now don't want to become addicted to abundance. Like, I don't want to become addicted to chasing abundance. My goal is to get to myself to a place where I get to live in freedom, in fun, in joy, in love, and just chill and relax and enjoy this life and this lifetime. And I'm sure that when I get there, I'll enjoy it. And I'm sure that at some point I'll be called to do something else. I mean, this life is a journey of healing. This life is a journey of reinvention. This life is a journey of change. And just to give yourself that capacity to acknowledge that we've all gone through reinventions, we've all gone through change. So to be able to acknowledge that we are going to be changing, but simultaneous, when we get to that point, we get to just reap the rewards and benefit of that change, of that healing, of that journey. That's what you should be focused on. Like, I'm focused on the moment where I live 3 blocks away from the beach, where I could go to the beach every single day with my dog and just relax and rest and chill. And again, I'm sure that some new thing will pop up for me that I will want to do, but the goal is to enjoy and to love and to just have fun and to just live.
Absolutely. Now, as folks are in listening this whole conversation around reinvention, if someone just popped in right now, what would be your top tips for someone looking to start on this road of reinvention?
Yeah. My number one thing would be to listen to yourself, because if this conversation sparked you, that means that already in your soul, in your internal being, you are looking for change. So my first piece of advice is to listen to yourself. If your soul, if your internal being is telling you that there is more, that you deserve more, that you want more exists. And so the first thing is to listen to yourself. The second thing is to not shut yourself down with hows and like strategy, but to just allow yourself to be in that space of more exists for me. If more exists for me, then what would more look like for me? And to just let that be, right? Like, we don't have to run to the finish line. Just sit with that question for a little bit. What would more for myself look like? Then what I would say is you have to tap into, why would it be important for me to create this? And what impact would it also have positively on those around me? I would become a better mom because I would be happier. I would become a better employee because I'd be in the right work environments for me, and I would be able to thrive in those environments. I'd become a better partner because I would really be able to have the capacity to love myself, which means I'd have the capacity to love my partner more, right? To really tap into why allowing yourself to have that would be so purposeful and so amazing for you. And if you could just allow yourself to do those 3 things, you're already gaining the momentum and you're already starting to think differently. And I can bet that you'll already start to do some things differently. And I would also say, like, know that this path towards becoming the absolute best version of you in this life is not an easy journey, because you have to heal, you have to change mindsets, relationships will change, lots of things will change. But the beauty on the other side is so worth it. And so that's what I would really leave people with.
That's very powerful. I put all those in the comment section, folks, for you to follow through. Now, Jasmine, if someone listening said, yeah,
Mhm.
I love everything you said. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to get on this journey, but I need you to go with me. So if they wanted to contact you, if they wanted to get some of your content, courses, anything that you may have coming up, share what it is that you have coming up, and then how they can get a hold of you for your services.
Yeah. So I've been a career coach and in the career game for a very long time now. So if someone is really interested in reinventing their career and stepping up in their confidence within the workplace and learning how to navigate the utilization of their voice, they want to get their best next role and all of the money that they truly deserve, you could work with me right now. And you can hit me up in the DMs on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to supply information for how you can make that happen. And then in the works are some really amazing programs and ways to work with me, specifically around this topic of just reinventing your life. That'll be in the works, but you can definitely join my mailing list. And again, if you DM me, I'd be happy to give you all the info, and that will help you and allow you to be the first to know when all of this great stuff drops.
All right, folks. Well, all of that stuff is going to be in the comments, so you can definitely get a hold of Jasmine, all her services. Get with her on LinkedIn, connect, send a message, put some comments in the comment section. Thank you, Jasmine, for sharing not only what you have gone through, but also how to get some people through this themselves. And folks, I want to remind everybody, I am on the hunt for 700 subscribers on YouTube. If you go to @DTLW Podcast, you'll be able to subscribe there. There are a lot of giveaways, both from StreamYard, Headliner, my own book club. There's so much being given out, so we would love to have you as a subscriber to that channel. And we're also streaming live on Parade Deck. Follow me, 731, on that platform. But today has been all about Jasmine, what she's doing down in South Florida. We're both Floridians right now. And so someday we'll have to connect down in South Florida. Folks, it's been a pleasure to have you with us. I hope you learned something today about being reinvented. Jasmine, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, mahalo, aloha, and we'll see each other next week for another guest on Aloha Friday Live.